Hello again. Welcome to the Thursday evening chat here on Sheffield Live TV. We're zooming in on Sheffield Wednesday. Sheffield Wednesday nostalgia. It's a big nostalgia show this evening because one name still repeatedly crops up. Some 36 years after he left Hillsborough. That's how big a hero he was, how big an impact he made. One of the most iconic players, I think it's fair to say, in Sheffield Wednesday's modern history, and yet remarkably from the most era. I refer to Tommy Craig. Hello there, Tommy.
Hello there, Alan. Nice to be with you.
Thank you very much for joining us. And before I introduce our other guests, how much does it mean, there are some very special guests, how much does it mean to you to still mean so much to Sheffield Wednesday supporters?
Well, it's been an ongoing thing, and I would say it's 2 lifetimes away. And from day one, I always felt the warmth and the support of the people in and around Sheffield. Even going through some tough periods, which there were. They never lost faith in me, which was a monumental task, if you like. It still remains. I mean, I remember leaving, and upon leaving, I received letters and cards from Wednesday supporters wishing me luck.
Well, it's remarkable that the legend persists. You're still a cult hero, an iconic player to this day. You were, at the time you joined Sheffield Wednesday in the late 1960s, Britain's costliest teenager at £100,000. You were then Sheffield Wednesday's record signing. But let's introduce the other 2 guests in this part of the show, this part 1 of the show, before we proceed with you, Tommy. You'll recall this book. In fact, everybody's talking about this book. You've read it. I've read it. John Dyson, the author, rejoins us. He was on a few weeks ago. Hello there, John.
Hello, Alan. Good to see you again. Thanks for having me back on.
Nice to see you again. And you called it the Holy Grail, getting hold of Tommy Craig, because you couldn't get hold of him for the book, but you persisted on my behalf, on behalf of this show. And we're very grateful to you for tracking down Tommy Craig. But we have 2 Tommy Craigs for the price of 1 on the show today. A very familiar face, a famous actor, actually, a Sheffield Wednesday supporter, and a particular fan of our special guest on this particular programme. I refer to, well, actually, his real name is Craig Thompson, but he doesn't answer to that. Hello there, Craig, or Tom, as you prefer to be known.
Hi, Alan. Hi, John. Tommy, how you doing?
Yeah, sorry. Good to see you, lad.
I answer to Tommy, or Tomo, or Tom, yes.
Tom, his real name, Craig Thompson. Now, there can't be a bigger tribute than this. And this guy, of course, is famous for roles in Coronation Street, Soldier, Soldier, Where the Heart Is. He was the boss of a toilet roll factory. Would have been absolutely coining it recently. So Tommy Craig, he changed his name, or his stage name became Tommy Craig. How much then? I asked Tommy how much it means to him to be remembered so fondly. What does Tommy Craig mean to all you guys? Tommy Craig, the actor, first of all.
Well, when I was a young lad, I think I might have seen Tommy's debut. I remember seeing him play against Tottenham, very last game of the season. It was 0-0 at Hillsborough. I think that might have been your debut.
Yes, it was.
68, 69. I can't really remember the year. But my 2 first heroes was Tommy and Willie Henderson in that early 70s team. And when I joined Equity, the Actors Union, in 1988, they told me that I couldn't have my real name. And you sit there as an actor, you're like, what shall I call myself? I'm making all these weird names up and everything. And one of my pals said, why don't you just flip your name? Because everybody called me Tom, Tommy, Tomo, because my surname's Thompson. And I just thought, it's like a light bulb went on. It was like, Tommy Craig. I'll be Tommy Craig, the actor. So I couldn't be Tommy Craig, the footballer. So I became Thomas Craig, the actor. And we did meet about 1997, didn't we, Tommy?
We
Do you remember?
Yeah. We had a lovely day at St James's Park, and it was great.
Yeah. And of course, you got the red hair in common, for sure.
And the strawberry blonde now.
A little bit of salt and pepper.
Yeah.
So there are similarities. And of course, it is remarkable, Tommy Craig, actor here, that this guy still means, you can still picture this elegant, left-footed, master of the pass, orchestrated midfield. Isn't it remarkable that in an era where Sheffield Wednesday slipped into the third tier and could have even got further down, that he's so well remembered?
Totally. I remember Tommy used to do this thing where he'd shoot with it was like a back heel. Where his left foot was standing on his right, but behind his right leg. Do you remember that? I've never seen anybody shoot like that before, and you've got so much power on it with your left foot. It was unbelievable. It was like, you don't even see anybody do that these days. What would you call that?
The Tommy Craig flip.
But very, very elegant player. Yeah.
Indeed. What are your memories of that time, Tommy? I'd imagine they've got to be bittersweet in the circumstances.
Well, I'm going to be very honest with you. I still think, and it's just my own opinion, that the hangover from the cup final in '66 was kind of still hanging around, and there was a lot of really good players in that team, McCalliog and Peter Eustace and Donald Ford, etc. It was an amazing time. Things happened so quickly for me, and I was brought into a team of men who I think at that time there was a number on the cusp of leaving. So there was a transition going on that I didn't kind of realise at the time. Very quickly there was a turnover of players, and it was surreal. It really was surreal to be thrust upon the public, the supporters, and being 18 and a half. I just had to make sure that I dealt with it myself.
Yeah, that must have been really hard, actually, and not least for the fact that you weren't actually signed by a football manager, were you? Because I think Sheffield Wednesday were between, and Eric Taylor was the supremo at Hillsborough, a wonderful administrator, the man who got Hillsborough to be the stadium that it has been over the years, but not actually a football manager. So he was the man who.
That was brought up quite a few times just as I arrived at the club, and I can totally understand people out with the club and other football clubs and players and managers saying, how can you break the transfer record when you don't have a manager? And I understand why. And bear in mind, we're talking serious pros on the playing staff here. Who themselves must have been asking questions within themselves. This is a kid. This is a kid coming down to Sheffield. So it was in the back of my mind. But again, I retreated and said, right, okay, let's deal with this. Let's crack on to see if I can make a difference. And that's how I applied it.
We certainly did make a difference in terms of the personal impact you made, and everybody who saw you drooled over you. And, just before I come back to that period, I've just got to put it into context. You signed from Aberdeen for £100,000. You made over 200 appearances for Sheffield Wednesday, scored plenty of goals in that time, including some penalties before going on to Newcastle. You were there for 3 years. Another big club, Aston Villa for 2 years. Swansea City, another 2 years, also played for Carlisle, Hibernian, capped by Scotland, and subsequently you've managed Scotland under 21s, you were coaching at Newcastle, you've managed in Belgium, Charleroi, and you've managed most recently at St Mirren. But just going back then, why was it that a team of, that had some really good individuals, yourself, Colin Harvey in particular, I remember, why was it that it didn't gel?
50 years ago, and I still don't know the answer, Alan. I really don't, because as you say, we had some right good players, Mick Prendergast, Brian Joyce, Willie Henderson, as you mentioned. We we were a team. I think we were a team of good players, but we weren't a team. You know, and if enough individuals on the day were performing, we would get a result. Because we didn't have a solid base, and we didn't have a solid base. We became a little bit like now: 2 steps forward, 1 step back; 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And to look at the players who were there, it's mind-boggling. I really don't. I can't put my finger on. Did we need a leader? Did we need another leader on the pitch? I tried to lead by example, but again, I was 20 years of age, and perhaps if we had someone who ruled the dressing room, it may have made a difference.
Yeah, well, let's talk about your managers. And you played, I think, for several, really. Jack Marshall had been sacked, I think, just before you arrived. And it was Danny Williams, Derek Dooley, and Steve Burtonshaw. Yeah, what are your memories of those guys?
Danny Williams, and God bless him, Danny had the amazing result against Arsenal in the League Cup final.
For Swindon, yeah.
For Swindon, yeah. And Danny's football philosophy was pretty much different to mine. Now, that's a player and a manager. I've got to follow the rules of the manager, absolutely. I've no qualms about that. But his style of play was to get the ball forward as quick as you possibly can and deal with it in their last third, which worked for Danny at Swindon. Fine, I don't have a problem with that. But I wasn't that type of midfield player who ran from box to box. I was more the kind of player who wanted to get on the ball and to start playing, which I call, and this is not a slight on Danny, but which I call proper football, a football that the fans want to see. And the Sheffield Wednesday fans were used to their team playing proper football. So it was difficult under Danny, and I had more than, as you can imagine, I had more than one conversation with him on the topic. Derek Dooley, was it Derek Dooley? No, yeah.
Yes.
A breath of fresh air, a real breath of fresh air. I met Derek on my arrival all those years ago. On the day that I signed, I met him, and from the moment we shook hands, I thought here's a guy who is just a terrific bloke. He made me feel very, very welcome, and he brought me to his office on numerous occasions, fed me the lines of self-confidence, showing him what you're made of. I believe in you. I think you're a great player. And his man management towards me was absolutely first class, and just what I needed at that time. Plus the fact that Derek wanted his team to play football. And that was a biggie for me.
And Steve Burtonshaw, the club slid a long way under Steve Burtonshaw. I don't know how much responsibility he must bear for that. What's your view on it?
At the time, Steve was what you would call one of the modern day coaches who went into tactical exercises and technical detail. And there was a slight change at that time on the position of a manager and a coach, whereas before that you would have a manager managing the club and doing the training almost on his own. He would have a number two, but the number two didn't really matter in those days. Well, Steve's role, and there was many other coaches like it, changed in the way that he used to paint the picture for you. This is what I want you to do. He would take us up. He would talk to us about what we need to do, and after that talk, he would take us to the training ground and show us and demonstrate. So there was a big change in how first team coaches and managers applied it.
Well, we'll come back to those three in part two, because we're going to be joined in part two by Vernon Grant, who's a big fan of yours as a young teenager, Sheffield Wednesday fan, London-based, one of the originals from the London Owls, subsequently a TV producer, and he's going to have lots to say about you, and I'm sure lots more to say about that era. We're going to talk about the Pele shirt swap and the Santos game in just a minute. But before we do, what's your view? How closely do you follow Sheffield Wednesday's results now? And what do you make of a period of, well, stagnation just at the minute?
Yeah, it's almost as you were. You know, they're in a division where there's a lot of teams trying to get in that top league. I wonder if I think back, did they miss out? Did they miss out when the whole Sky thing changed and you weren't in the Premiership? If you were in the Premiership, you were big time. If you were in the first, if you were in the Championship, the chase was on to get up because of the financial rewards.
It's been 20
and did they miss the boat? Did they miss the boat along with Leeds, along with, you know, there's many other teams who were who used to play in the old First Division. Big clubs. Sheffield Wednesday is a massive club, but somewhere along the line, is it going to take somebody to come in and buy the club and put millions? See, people sometimes forget Liverpool, Man United, Man City. All these teams are backed by huge money. Now,
well, Sheffield Wednesday do have a very wealthy owner, actually, who's thrown plenty of money at it. His commitment is undoubted. Great credit in that respect to Dave Ponchat's series. Came close twice in the playoffs as well, Tommy Craig, actor. You must have been through some anguish following your team over the years, not least lately.
Oh, like Tommy just hinted, it's 20 years since we were in the Premier League. I've got a son who's 17, who's brought up in Wandsworth, who probably should support Chelsea, but I've made him a Sheffield Wednesday fan. And he's actually born in Dundee, so he supports Scotland and Wednesday, so he's on a double whammy. So that's my legacy to my boy. I took him to Brentford just before lockdown when we lost 5-0. I think he sometimes hates me on a Saturday afternoon.
I can understand that. And I've got a son who supports Sheffield Wednesday. Now, I'm totally split down the middle. I like the Blades and the Owls, and I'm constantly walking a tightrope. I am actually a Chesterfield supporter, so that gets me out of jail. But he is the same, Tommy. He said to me early 90s, you know, which is the best team? I said, well, at the moment, it is Sheffield Wednesday because you had Waddle, Sheridan, etc. Yeah. All right, I'll go that way. And he blames me to this day as well. John Dyson, just quickly, you won't remember what we're talking about here, will you? A lot of it.
The mid-70s? No, I don't directly, but it's always struck me as fascinating how fans stuck by it and remembered it so positively in a time of such decline that we've talked about. And some of that, I'm sure, is explained by the likes of the people you've mentioned there. Tommy, obviously, here today, but Willie Henderson, Prendergast, Joycey, lots of others that fans remember really, really fondly. And that is something that impresses me, how people stick by it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mystery, really. I thought some of the finest approach play I've ever seen from Sheffield Wednesday was in your era, Tommy. Some of the most intricate, sort of best moves. And yet I recall that spell where the Owls couldn't score in, 8 successive home games?
Yeah, that's right.
One? Yeah,
that's
Oxford.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
I think when you support Wednesday, you become part of the family. I know it's a bit romantic, but you do become part of the family. And when I went through some tough times at Sheffield Wednesday, I didn't feel at no time did I feel that they were going to abandon me. It was more support. They gave me more support. Come on, we know you're better than that. We've seen you. You know. So when you become part of Sheffield Wednesday, you become part of a big family.
Yeah, well, let's just look at one of the real highlights. Despite everything that happened on the field in the league, during that time, Sheffield Wednesday had a friendly, I think it was 1972, against Santos and Pele. people can see that there was a huge crowd at Hillsborough that day, I think pushing 40,000, despite the fact that it was an afternoon kickoff, because it was during a coal strike, miners' strike, and there was a power shortage, etc. Now, I mean, before we come on to the thing that most people remember about that day, what was it like playing against Pele?
Well, first of all, I've got to say I've been asked the question, what were your highlights at Sheffield Wednesday? And I didn't mean to be negative. But I did say to people, well, there weren't many. You know, there weren't many. And I feel a little bit of a cheat, because on this occasion, it was a total one-off. It wasn't a case of, I'll play against this guy on another occasion. This was a total one-off. So I had to concoct a way of being in the right place at the right time, or even in the right place at the wrong time, to get a hold of the great man's jersey. And a fair bit of planning went into it, and I came up with the idea of having a chat with Gordon Hill, the referee, at half time. I'll take you back first. The very fact that he was coming to Sheffield, you've got to say well done to Eric Taylor and the board for managing to bring them back again, if you like. Anyway, on the day, we're going out at half time, and I was last out, but I did pop my head in to see Gordon Hill. And he says, "What are you after?" I says, "Well, can you do me a favour? Can you let me know when there's a couple of minutes to go?" And he says, "Why?" I said, "Well, there's going to be a stampede for the man's jersey, and I want a head start." And he slapped me in the back of the head. He says, "Go on you go." And I didn't really know if he says yes or no. Anyway, that big clock at Sheffield made its way around to your right Wednesday afternoon, 20 minutes to 5, and my eyes are on the referee. We were attacking at the time. We were actually attacking at the time, and I was playing left back because Pele used to wander over to that side of the pitch. When the final whistle went, he would give a quick wave and get down the tunnel. Anyway, Gordon Hill turned round, gave me the nod, and I turned around and I grabbed Pele. And I think he got a fright to start with, because I grabbed him tightly, looked at him, said, "Would you like my shirt?" And that's the way it went. I was over the moon. Now that is a highlight. That is a highlight. And as I say to you, you're cheating a wee bit. You're cheating a little bit.
But Pele, he's got Tommy Craig's shirt.
Well, I'm sure he'd be washing his car with that.
I was at that game, Tommy. I was at that game.
Who was at that game? Tom,
I was at that game, yeah. Yeah, I was there.
You must have wagged off school to get there, did you?
I think everybody did. It was like it was Tuesday or Wednesday afternoon, and everybody was off school. Yeah.
Alan, can I say to you, you there, Al?
Yeah, sure.
Alan, after the game, you had to see this to believe it. There was a queue. There was a queue outside the dressing room door, out the ground, down beyond the car park, turn right into the main road, and the man sat for 2.5 hours, signing programs and bits and pieces. The humility of the man was astonishing. But I think that's why he was the best in the world. He's the best I've ever seen, ever. Yeah. But his humility was incredible.
Great player, but also a great person, which in many ways is more important.
Yeah, absolutely. A great ambassador for the game. Unbelievable.
Well, I'll tell you what, I can't top that for part one, but what a cracking 20-25 minutes we've had. The good news is that there's going to be more in part two, when Vernon Grant, the former TV producer, Big Al's fan, admirer of Tommy Craig, rejoins us.